dramatically change your life. I mean, I would guess most of you are familiar with Facebook. You know, it has that ease of use, and as we think about who are entering our organizations, they're much more familiar with these internal collaboration tools than they are necessarily with picking up a phone and calling or writing an email. I can't remember the last time I wrote an email to someone not at work. And when I left Microsoft, I had 38 unheard voicemail messages that I just never bothered to check because I assumed if it was important, they'd write it.
Yeah.
Like, I hate talking on the phone. I'm a PR person who hates talking on the phone, and I think that, like, it's just not, I look at it as you're sitting in a meeting or talking on a phone. It's just not a useful use of time, and internal social collaboration tools facilitate that. And please interrupt me. I talk really fast and just go from stream of consciousness. So, but then that also leads, you know, sort of people are afraid of engaging and being brand ambassadors, and that's something that we're also investing a lot of money in. How do we get people over that barrier of, gosh, like, I'm afraid to say anything because the internet lives forever? And, you know, something that I say off the cuff can create a huge issue for my company, and particularly in the business that you're in, where you have elected representatives who hang on every word, you know, every word that you say and look for missteps. I think that that's really important, and I think the answer to that is social media is not any different than having a conversation with your neighbor across a fence. The medium is just different. It's not something mystical or magical that really needs a key to understand or break down. The same rules apply. You know, if you wouldn't walk down the street and say something at the top of your lungs, then you shouldn't say it on Facebook. You know, when in doubt, don't tweet it. It's never a good idea to bash your competition or to bash individuals. At Coke, we just have a standing rule. We actually never comment on anything our chief competitor does, no matter how frustrating that may be and how wrong we think that they are. You know, sort of always take the high road and realize that everyone is a spokesperson now. And that's the thing that we struggle the most with at Coke. I mean, we have a very tight group of 600 people around the world who are official spokespeople for the company. We're now living in an environment where we have 130,000 spokespeople. So at Coke, we're delivering training to every single associate in the world this year that basically says what I told you. Hey, you know, don't be stupid. Essentially, it's the Google rule. And always be mindful of what you say, and if you're in over your head, say, you know what, I don't know the answer to that, but I can connect you to someone who can, and then follow up and do that. Because otherwise, you know, you should want to engage, and you should want your people to engage, because no one is going to be as devoted an ambassador for the things that you work on as yourself. That's a wonderful arsenal to have in your back pocket. And you're passionate, and you need to show that passion, and you need to get out there, and you need to do it. So I would say, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of being a brand ambassador, because it's part of your job. The tools are very similar. I don't know if if you have questions around that, or...
No, but what's actually interesting is you don't have rules for people to use the Coca-Cola Facebook or like your internal microblogging tools. They don't have rules. We set up rules for Socialcast, but Coca-Cola didn't with their employees, other than just don't be stupid.
I mean, we're in a pilot now, so something terrible might happen, and we need to set some rules.
We'll send you templates of our rules.
But you know, it's one thing that we're noticing is Coke employees are really afraid. And they default to not saying anything.
The Global Fund tried this and quit it for that exact reason.
Yeah,
their staffs were afraid to.
People are terrified to engage, because for so long, for 125 years, we've had spokespeople, and these are the people who are supposed to talk on behalf of the company. But in this environment, it makes no sense. You know, if someone who's if you wrote to me on Facebook and said, "Does aspartame give me cancer?" It's crazy that I can't respond to you. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. But I would say, well, I looked on the Coke site, and here is the FAQ around aspartame and cancer. Here's the link. But if you have more questions, you know, I'll need to connect you to someone who's a scientist. But it's crazy to tell somebody that they can't do that. And that's the thing that we struggle with the most. I mean, taking a look at all of your social properties, it seems like you're pretty enthusiastic about it. We have the opposite problem. I spend most of my time trying to get people excited to go out and say it's okay. We want you to do this. We want you to show the optimism that we have for our brands.
You mentioned that you were training all associates this year. What's the training about? So how do you train them?
So we have to do it by video, just because we have 138,000 employees, essentially in every inhabited continent in 206 countries. So we don't have a choice but to do it by video. As much as resources allow, we do it in person. So we have big regional meetings every year. Like we have 5 regions in the world. They each have a meeting. I always go to those. Well, I will go to those meetings, and I have gone to just try to give that sort of that pep talk in person and give those guardrails. Because one of the things that we've noticed is the best information comes out in questions. Like I can tell you, don't bash your competition. Certainly don't bash a member of Congress or a parliamentary body who's questioning what you're doing. That's never smart. Obviously, don't use profanity. Be smart connecting people to subject matter experts. That's essentially what our training is. It's only 25 minutes long. Because we're also very mindful that people have to do about 11 mandatory courses a year. The whole don't steal from your company, don't steal from the government, ethics and compliance stuff. We don't want to burden.
That stuff.
We want to get people excited, right? We don't want to burden. And unfortunately, you have the limits of being as exciting as watching a 25-minute video with cartoons can possibly be. But then we do, we're going to do 201 trainings for health and wellness, environmental sustainability, and media relations to give those people also a little bit more nuanced information of, hey, how do you build a coalition of journalists on Twitter around a particular topic, around, say, sustainable packaging or something like that. And those are done in person and also on video.
Sorry, going back to the trainings, are you going to also maybe, because it can be about anything and everything, do you also use the strengths or the areas of the people to just emphasize, okay, what is the message that we want you to, in any case, to give to the people, or in general, if you were asked, what is Coca-Cola, what are you doing,
Right.